morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Atlanta Motorsports Park. We're in the hills in Dawsonville, Georgia. What a lovely day it is. And our resident weatherman, John Matthews, has brought us excellent weather today. John, you've done well.
Charles, I think that's a first where you've given me credit for the good weather, but as you've indicated, hints of fall in the air. We're in September, so we're at that time of year where people start thinking about apple picking corn mazes, and we will have some horsepower joining that today as we probably broke in the upper 50s this morning. We'll touch maybe 80 degrees, which compared to the furnace of summer where we were talking close to 100 degrees, drivers really sweating it out, say in June and July. They will have a easier time today as far as the weather goes. It won't be an easier time on the track as this 2-mile 16 turn course tests the driver at just about every single aspect.
Well, we'll be talking a lot about that as the day goes on and how these temperatures affect the drivers in a positive way today. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise now for our invocation and our national anthem. And to deliver today's invocation is my colleague, John Matthews.
Please join with me in prayer. Dear God, we're just thankful for this morning, this day you have given us here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. And we just ask for your hand to be with the drivers, the crews, as well as the staff here. And God, we not only ask for you to be with the drivers while they're on the track, we ask that you walk with us while we're on the road of life. We need your mercy and your grace as well as your courage and your wisdom. If we do that, if we receive that and take it, I believe that we can make this community, this state, this country a little bit better of a place. I lift up all this in the name of your precious Son, Jesus. Amen.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are so happy to have you here with us today at Atlanta Motorsports Park. It's another great day of racing action, and we'll be bringing out our Spec Miatas. They'll be on track first, so we'll have them on track and ready to roll here in just a moment as we get today's qualifying races underway. We'll be bringing them out on the track. John, we talked about the beautiful weather today. You had a chance to talk to some of the drivers about how this will impact specifically braking portions of the racetrack.
That's right. I talked to a couple of the downforce drivers. They won't be really feeling much different than they do on a warmer day, but with the slightly cooler temperatures, this track, as we've talked about every time we're on the broadcast, a really technical 2-mile track, it is hard on brakes. All the elevation changes, especially turn 1, where drivers are at maximum speed, then drop downhill into a hairpin turn. This track requires a lot of braking. And in the summer, hot summer months, we frequently hear of drivers where they're boiling the brake fluid. They're losing their brakes during the course of even a 20-minute race. That's enough time to wear out the brakes. With the cooler temperatures today, that means that the brakes will cool more quickly after the drivers have let off the brake. So to compensate, the drivers will be able to use more brake during the race. So you can see more aggressive entry into corners, especially corners 1 and 6. Drivers know that they can drive it hard into the corner and then brake later, which would mean faster corner entry speeds. When the brakes start to fade, that's where the drivers have to back up the corner, as they say. They'll let off the gas a little earlier and then ease their way into the brake. We'll see less of that with the cooler temperatures just because the brakes will cool off a little more as they're, say, driving down the straightaways. The brakes get a little bit more of a respite with these cooler temperatures.
So now what that means for our fans is they possibly can see more passing in those passing zones that are in the corners. Drivers may have an opportunity to enter, which gives them a chance to exit better, possibly on the inside or outside of those braking zones. So we may see a little more racing action and passing action today just due to that one fact.
Absolutely. Something that we will watch as the day goes on. It's cooler morning temperatures here by the time we get to the afternoon race. It will be about 80 degrees, which is a beautiful fall day. We'll see how the cars do respond. Temperature-wise, tires can also be impacted. I know we always seem to get a Days of Thunder quote into our broadcast. When the temperature gets hot and the tires get hot, they get slick and greasy. That can impact handling. With temperatures, I'll say, only of 80 degrees, that means that the temperature of the asphalt will be a little cooler. So drivers may have a little bit more grip, at least as they start.
And thank you for bringing that up, because on our trip to Cabo San Lucas last week, I watched Days of Thunder again as my movie of choice on the airlines. It's always I could sit there and quote it almost verbatim the entire way down there, but still got to love that movie, man. One of the greats. We want to thank our crew today. Of course, Will Rigdon is our executive producer. Today, Ethan Denny is taking over director and producer status. Jeffrey Farver is on our Skycam and our drone. He'll be getting some great shots from those areas that we can't always see too well from our vantage point. That is 12, 13, 14, 15, that complex over in there. Also today, Brandon McMahon, Nathan Woodland, John Michael, and Mikey Lane all doing camera work here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. And, John, it's great to see this many cameras. I go back to that first road course event that I ever did at Road Atlanta 20-some-odd years ago. We had one camera at the tower, and that was it. So they would disappear off to turn 3 or 4, and we wouldn't see them again until turn 17. And here would come the thundering herd by, and we wouldn't see them again for a couple of minutes. But thankfully, on that particular day, they brought Bobby Allison in as my color commentator. And I will have to say, as far as the racing world goes, he had a little more knowledge than you do as far as the old parts of NASCAR. It was great to work with Bobby Allison, and we shared a lot of stories that day.
I know I'm going to lose any comparison to Bobby Allison, so I get it. I totally understand it. Allison, a NASCAR Hall of Famer, multi-time champion, as well as won some big races in this state, including at the old Middle Georgia Speedway down. I'm trying to remember the city that it's in down there. Is it Peach County?
Byron?
Byron.
Yeah,
it is in
Byron.
Well, you had mentioned that when the cars would head off into the forest, probably a lot like the old German Grand Prix, where literally they would leave the stadium section of the course and then drive out into the forest, and they wouldn't return for, I think it was about 3 miles out through the forest.
Yeah, it's like doing a Grand Prix in a city, and you're stuck in a skyscraper overlooking about 2 turns of the city. That's sort of the kind of scenario we had.
And we may also have pole cam as well. The story of pole cam, it sits outside of turn 1. When it's active, that's the old drone cam.
Yeah, pole cam 1 was drone Skycam 1. Then truck cam became Skycam 2 when it lost its opportunity to fly. It was grounded, so to speak. That became truck cam, which I don't know now what it has become. We may find out later. Will Rigdon always has a way of giving us unique shots from various areas on the racetrack, so we'll see what he brings out today. The more difficult the weather, the more of those pole cams are created because the drones somehow meet with fate. But today's a beautiful day, so our drone should get great shots and not be in too much danger of crashing due to winds or something of that nature.
Well, today is round number 6 of our 2022 Championship Series. If you're watching, whether you're joining us on YouTube or on Facebook Live, we just ask that you give us a like and a thumbs up. Give us a follow so that you can get notified the next time content goes live on Atlanta Motorsports Park on any of the social media platforms. And I tell you what, put a comment down below. let us know where you are joining us from this morning or today. We know that sometimes with the go-kart track, people are watching from across the pond over in Ireland and the UK. So let us know down in the comments. It also helps us beat the YouTube algorithm. I know, Charles, that you're like, what? But a lot of comments seem to drive fun things on the YouTube algorithm. So like, comment, share it with your friends. Let them know that you are taking time out of your day today to enjoy some of the racing here from Atlanta Motorsports.
Yeah, a lot of people think that the number of likes do affect the algorithm when really it's the number of comments. You're looking for comments, so comment away, people. Also, coming up first weekend in November, let's mention this. We've got some Legends car racing here at Atlanta Motorsports Park, and you and I are covering a Legends event tonight, so we're going to get familiar with these cars. We're looking forward to that. We always enjoy the Legends drivers and the Legends cars, and they will be here at Atlanta Motorsports Park for a big weekend. That's going to be a keynote weekend here at Atlanta Motorsports Park.
Absolutely. As I had indicated, today is round 6 of the championship series here on the main track. Round 7 will be October 22nd. And then, as you had indicated, round 8, the final round, will be on Saturday, November 5th. We'll have Spec Miata, we'll have Downforce, and as you've said, we'll have Legends out on the track here. Legends are a 5/8 scale car that was mimicking what they had in the 30s and 40s, whether it's the coupes or the sedans out there. Charles, whenever I see the cars, I'm thinking it's a Keystone Cop kind of look, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit with the cars out there getting around the track.
Well, you will hear this story again today, I promise you. But I visited with Humpy Wheeler right after they developed the Legends cars, and, of course, he and Elliott Forbes Robinson were the brain children, I guess you'd say. It was their brainchild. They were the founders of the Legends program, and visited with Humpy, and Humpy said that he walked through his son's bedroom one day and saw a Hot Rod magazine, and on the front of it was a Fat Fender 40 Ford. And he said, all of a sudden it clicked with him. We need to have something that looks like that, small enough to go in the back of a pickup truck, so the 5/8 wheelbase or 5/8 styling as far as size is concerned, and that was what prompted the 40 Ford look that they have now in those. They had sedans for a period of time. The coupes seemed to be very popular at that time also. Of course, they've expanded into bandoleros, which are the smaller cars, almost like go-karts for the younger kids and the outlaws that are the older adults that even want to be in bandoleros. And they've got the Thunder Roadsters, which we see rarely now, but those are also available, and that is part of the Legends program. NX is the sanctioning body for that. They will be here to sanction that race. We look forward to it. Ken Reagan is part of Legends of Georgia, and he will be here on that date in November, so we'll see him and be talking with him as we get ready for a big Legends event here at Atlanta Motorsports Park.
So Legends, about 1,250 pounds with, I think, a 1,200 cc engine in them. Some of them air-cooled, some are water-cooled. As you had indicated with the bandoleros, it's almost, if you could imagine, a go-kart with a roof on it. There's a little bit of fiberglass framing around it, and the driver really sits down a lot like a go-kart where they're laying back a little bit, engine behind them. Looks like fun little cars out here, so I can imagine what kind of work they'll do here on the technical course at Atlanta Motorsports Park. If I'm correct in understanding, they won't run the full course. They'll use the cutoff that more or less cuts off turns 12 through 15, and then they'll come back up on the main straightaway. So a little shorter
We'll be able to
course.
see almost all of that from our vantage point here. They'll disappear for just a minute whenever they do that cut through, but we will be able to see the majority of them, and they will race an abbreviated portion of this racetrack. So we've got cars on the track right now as we get ready to go. It is Spec Miata, and I believe we've also got Jordan Coker out there in his E30 as well. So we got a few cars on the racetrack. Rachel Heiler is behind the wheel of the pace car, or the safety car here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. So there you see our group that's on the track right now. John, give us a rundown of who we've got.
Lineups were set by qualifying earlier in the morning. We're going to have Chris Branham on the pole in the number 20 car. Keegan Hall will be alongside in the number 16. And Charles, as you had indicated, Jordan Coker in the number 22 is in a different car. He is in an older a BMW car. We call it the SE30 class. To me, it just looks like a classic BMW out there, whether it's from the late 70s, early 80s. You imagine one of those original 3 Series automobiles. That is what Coker is piloting today. They'll race for 20 minutes in this pre-final, and their finish in this race will determine where they start in the final later today.
And of course, Coker is in a division all by himself, so he will be the first starter in his division. We already know that because he's the only one competing in that particular class. So the battle is down between the other two as we get ready for the action to begin. They'll work their way as they continue around the race course. In just a few moments, we'll be bringing them to green as Rachel will take the pace vehicle off of the racetrack, and we'll get a green flag for 20 minutes here at Atlanta Motorsports Park as our first pre-final of the day gets underway.
Race fans, if you would like to enjoy some of that sensation of speed that we'll be broadcasting to you today, in the background you can see the kart track. Right now it's running some open sessions, but at times during the week they have public karting available. You can arrive and drive in karts that go up to 55 miles an hour. Great way to have some fun if you want a corporate team building event, bachelor party, or just an excuse to get out of the house and enjoy this facility here. Public karting's the way to go. Go to atlantamotorsportspark.com, click on karting to get more information.
Every day but Monday it's open and it's available, and it is going to be outstanding. We're coming to a green flag start. Here they come down right now. Brett Landry waves the green flag. We get underway as our Spec Miatas and our E30 class head into that treacherous turn number 1. Let's see if they come out cleanly off turn 1. Looks like everybody makes it through. Nobody hits the sand pit. That is a good sign, John.
Absolutely a good sign. So looks like Chris Branham in the 20 is in the lead, if my eyes are correct, as the drivers head uphill around that long sweeping turn number 4. This is modeled after the carousel at the Nuremberg Ring. Almost a 270-degree turn. If you imagine doing a U-turn in a rotary is about the best way to describe it. Drivers will then charge downhill through the kink in 5. Then they'll be hard on the brakes here as we see a close moments there as Hall tries to go up the inside of Branham at turn 6, and now they'll head down the back straightaway.
Well, Hall had to check up. Branham just really now some difficulty for him as the BMW gets by him as well. So a little bit of issue going on there mechanically. He may have locked it up a little too much when he tried to come through that corner in turn number 6.
The entry to number 6 is hard on the brakes. Boy, if you don't get that apex correct, it really costs your speed on the exit of the corner as well as down that back straightaway.
So the cars have disappeared off into turns 12, 13, and 14, and that big, long, sweeping complex of turns over there. They'll be coming out of turn 15. We'll be able to see them again in just a few moments. Here they make their way off of turn 15, and they're coming to, that's where they peel off for the pit road entrance, and right now you see them coming by there. So it's Branham up front, Hall in second place, I believe, as they make their way by, come by to complete lap number 1, but more importantly, they have completed their first couple of minutes on the racetrack during this group.
That's right, Charles. So you could see Branham has a healthy lead. Timing and scoring says just about 4.5 seconds. And the best battle on the track is between Hall and Coker. Coker running that candy apple red BMW machine. The Spec Miatas that are out here, they'll weigh about 2,400 pounds. Pretty similar to what you might see on the street. Although, Charles, at this point in time, a lot of these cars will start to be older than the drivers. A lot of these Miatas are from the late 90s or early 2000s. As we see our leader, Branham, a little bit of tire smoke on the entry to turn 6. That'll be something to watch. Drivers can start to flat spot the tires as Coker in the 22 gets a little squirrely off the exit of turn 6. That's going to cost him a ton of time and track position. So, Charles, a lot of these Miatas getting into that almost vintage age where they're 20, 25 years old.
Yeah. I remember I was having a conversation with Radon Nickel, of course, the youngster who did his last Miata race here a couple of races ago. He has moved up into the downforce cars now. And, of course, Radon racing in cars that were far older than he was. So it's kind of interesting to see a kid of the late 90s and early 2000s racing in something that was vintage 89 to 93, somewhere in that range.
So we just saw Chris Branham sweeping around turn number 15, and now he shoots into view right down the front straightaway. That's the fastest part of the track. Branham will then be hard on the brakes down into turn 1. In this camera shot, you can see the new condos that are being finished up just on the straightaway between turn 1 and 2. If you want more information on the condos, the developments here, once again, AtlantaMotorsportsPark.com is the best way to get information. Those buildings are a lot of open shells where you can have a garage for your car and then even a lift to elevate your car to be the showcase of your condo. Neither Charles nor I have a vehicle suitable for that, but we know that some of the members here do have some unique automobiles that are worthy of being a showpiece.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would want to see my F-150 sitting in the midst of their living room.
Well, it still is the most popular vehicle sold in America, I think, the F-150.
Well, I will have to say this. Since you and I have talked last, Debbie now has a brand new Cadillac XTS. She might allow us to put that in the living room. I don't think anybody in the road racing world is really interested that much in a Cadillac XTS.
Well, we're not even going to talk about what my car is then. I'll just say I do software engineering Monday to Friday, and the car I drive seems very typical for the software engineering world.
Well, our Miatas are on the track right now along with the BMW, so they are making their way around this race course as we're continuing to work our time here for our summer championships. In round number 6 here at Atlanta Motorsports Park, we thank you for joining us here today. We're going to have a lot of action throughout the day. We'll be getting groups 1 and 2, which means our downforce cars will be coming out a little later. Then we'll take our lunch break and come back for the finals this afternoon. That will determine our podium finishes for all of our drivers. Remember, this is club racing. So tonight, a big social event for all the club members. That's going to be an outstanding time, so we look forward to those folks who are going to be here for that, and we know they'll enjoy that great time of fellowship and fun and frivolity. How about that, mentioning all 3 of the Fs?
Wow. Speaking of frivolity on the track, maybe Keegan Hall has reeled back in Branham after that one bad corner on turn number 6 on the opening lap. Now Branham just about a second back as our leaders swing into turn 6. Hall a lot smoother that time around than he was on lap number 1, so they'll sail down the back straightaway in the Spec Miatas. Lap times in these Miatas, they're doing about 1 minute 42 seconds on a 2-mile track. That means that they're coursing around here at an average of about 70 miles an hour. Doesn't sound like a lot. You say, hey, I can drive that on the highway, but on these turns here, uphill, downhill, and a variety of corners, that is actually quite a lot of work for these cars. That these Miatas don't have a ton of horsepower. They're 100, maybe 125 horsepower. These aren't, high horsepowered muscle cars. These are more cruisers out there that they're rolling around on the course.
And, of course, the spec portion of the name Spec Miata means that there are certain specifications that these drivers can do to the cars, which is very minimal. This is an economical, if there is such thing in the world of racing, as economical as you can be by just putting roll bars in, eliminating a few things, and very few upgrades can be made to these cars.
So now we see Hall getting right to that rear bumper of Branham's car as they charge up towards turn number 3. Let's see if Hall might be able to make a move, get a good exit off the carousel, or perhaps into the passing zone in turn number 6. And we see Hall just about a half a car length back as they sweep around that unending left-handed corner. At least for now, Branham holds on, but here we see Hall maybe spying a move into the brakes into turn 6. There we see Hall make a move, sends it down the inside. He gets up along the inside, and he's able to make it stick off the exit. So we have our first battle for the lead, but here comes Branham fighting back on the outside.
After the first lap, whatever he got so far behind after over-braking going into turn number 6, we never dreamed he would be able to catch up without having a caution or something happening on the racetrack. Man, what a great showing it is for him right now as he has worked his way up to that top spot.
So Hall, the driver out of Marietta, Georgia, is taking the lead. Branham is joining us from Cullman, Alabama. And Jordan Coker out there in the E30 is from right here in Dawsonville.
Pretty cool.
So, Charles, you had mentioned that social. They already have some of the things set up for that party, including a giant football-themed inflatable out there. I wonder if the announcers are going to have to go challenge each other during the lunch hour. We'll see what hijinks we can get into.
Well, we may be able to. How many footballs can we throw inside the Dr. Pepper can in order to see if we can get a full ride scholarship to college, John?
I think it's a little late for that, maybe, Charles. We would walk in. If we walked into a college class, Charles, you know what all the other kids would think?
Say, who's the old guy?
Who's the professor?
Yeah.
There's the professor right there. Here we're getting a great shot from the pole cam as the drivers charge up towards that carousel. Looks like the pole cam, normally a steady shot, looked like it had some movement there. So another great new camera angle as the production staff here continues to find inventive ways to give you that sensation of speed right into your home.
Well, here they come in at turn number 6. Now, that's the one where Keegan Hall had issues with before, but right now, locked up the brakes just a little bit. Saw a little puff of smoke coming out of there from Branham's car.
And that's the second time Branham has done it. When a driver locks up the brakes once, maybe they get a little flat spot on there. You have to wonder if you've seen it twice. Flat spots tend to get worse as you continue braking. The tire, as it rolls, wants to stop on that little flat spot and typically exacerbates itself.
And this may be a far-fetched item to talk about, but it's possible, I think, that under these conditions, these drivers are used to very hot conditions where they really have to press the brakes hard in order to get those hot brake rotors to do their thing. Now today, those brake rotors are much cooler, so it's possible that they're just using old memory thought with their foot going in there and really hitting those brakes hard, and that might not be necessary on a day like today.
That might not. There you can see our leaders sweep through turn 15, 16, and down the front straightaway. That's another signature series of corners here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. I had mentioned turn 4 is modeled after the carousel at the Nuremberg Ring. Turns 15 and 16 is modeled after the Eau Rouge complex at the Belgian Grand Prix course at Spa.
And this track is a signature track because of the elevation changes, one of the most largest elevation changes of any course in America. And, of course, with the signature corners that we have that were mimicked after other international racetracks, it has just brought its own flair to the Northeast Georgia area. By the way, we're halfway through right now, just past that 10-minute mark. So halfway through, and right now Keegan Hall is leading the way in the 16. Chris Branham is in the number 20 car. There you see about 20 car lengths difference, I guess you would say, in those cars as you saw that last shot. And, of course, Jordan Coker in a class all by himself in that red BMW.
So this is that shot of turn 15 into turn 16. Drivers will have told me that when you're constantly turning to the left and then you have to bring the car back on the right at 16 and then you're hard on the gas to the front straightaway, the rear end of the car gets very, very light. So it is possible to see cars spin out off turn 16. Just one of the things to watch here as we see Hall come sweeping around turn 15. This camera shot would also show you the pit entrance. If drivers were ending the race or if they had a mechanical issue, they'd come up onto the pit lane as we see Hall sweep by to notch another lap.
You saw that sand pit that was coming off 16, and it seems you and I have driven around this track, certainly not at speed, but we have been around this track. And as you come up the hill from 15 up to turn 16, the car unloads. The force, the downforce that you have coming up the hill, the car unloads as you hit that straightaway, and it's very easy for a car to spin. A lot of difficult hits have been made in that area off turn 16 where they have the tire barriers and, of course, the sand pit to try to slow those cars down before that major hit that they might incur.
Right. So here Hall works his way through turn number 6 again. He was ahead by 2.8 seconds again as we see Brannon smoking those tires into turn 6. So, Charles, it seems like every other lap, Brannon locks up the brakes. We have to wonder what tire damage he might have, and it's probably happening more on the right side of the car as setting up for that corner. The right side of the car as the weight will shift to the left side.
Yeah, John, we haven't watched him very closely down in turn 1. That's another one of those hairpin type turns. We'll have to check next time by and see if we have that same kind of brake lockup when he gets down to turn 1. So we haven't checked that out the last couple of times by. We'll do that next time around for him. Expecting them off turn 15 here any moment. Remember a couple of races ago where coming off turn 14, remember we had a driver that flew through the air and wound up in the trees off of turn 14. So people may think that you're out for a Sunday afternoon drive, but sometimes this track can get a little treacherous, and drivers do wind up in areas where they did not expect.
Yeah, I think that's the time last year they had to call for a chainsaw.
Yeah.
At one point we heard the call come up to the booth that you think, why did someone need a chainsaw? Well, they were literally out in the tree line off turn 13 and 14. Now, we've talked about the hairpins in turn 1 and 6. The signature turns here as we ride along with Chris Branham through the carousel. So the carousel at 4 and then 15, 16. One of the other real unique corners is turns 12 into turn 13. When you drive it, even if you're driving slow or at speed, there's actually a blind corner there. You come out of turn 12, you go uphill so sharply, and then the track drops away down to the left. And for a moment, you're just looking at sky. You don't see the road ahead of you. And doing it the first time really seemed disconcerting, Charles, that you don't even know where the road is out in front of you.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you do have to have a bit of memory of the track to know what it's going to do, because like you say, when you top that hill, first time, you don't know if you're going right or left. You have no clue. It's like going over a bridge over a railroad track and you can't see anything past the front nose of your car.
But there's a turn involved in it here. It's not just like a typical bridge where you just, hump up over and go right back down.
Much like coming out of turn 2 at the kart track, where all of a sudden you come over 2 and you say, oh my goodness, I've got to make a 180-degree turn and go back up the hill. Not quite that extreme on the car track, on the main track, but that's one of the things that we enjoy about the kart track that'll be coming back into play here very soon.
Keegan Hall sweeps down the front straightaway, and he'll head down off to turn 1. So there we're getting a great view. This is from our pole cam as he comes around turn number 1. Under the Augusta Masters-like hedge there, and then he sweeps up to turn 2. I didn't see any smoke out the window from Branham's car, so maybe he is compensated for being a little hard on the quiet pedal this time. So now we're following Branham uphill into the carousel. This shot really gives you an appreciation for the elevation change here. I believe it's 98 feet of difference in height between the lowest point on the track and the highest point. The highest point
kudos
is
to you, John. I've never liked the term getting on the loud pedal. I don't like that, but I do like getting on the quiet pedal. I am impressed with that term.
Well, the quiet pedal might be loud depending on what you are doing there.
It might be, depending on how you're doing it. Like those shots from the hedges, they give us a great shot. We are between the hedges here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. I don't think that fits.
But it really does give you an aspect of we look from the tower a lot of times when you see things on camera. They tend to wash out height differences. And when you see the pole cam and the drivers are literally heading away up, it really gives you a new perspective on how things are here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. The kart track has its own elevation profile, including a 3-story drop that we've indicated from the U-turn in turn 2, where they drop down 3 stories, turn right around, and go right back up 3 stories.
One of the things that I enjoy when we are here doing the kart track is many times there are events going on at the main track as well. And of course with the karts, there's so many karts here, we have to park way back at the condos and walk our way up to the tower. And as you walk by, you get a chance to really look over those hedges and view what's going on the main track. And it's so much more powerful to be right there within 30 or 40 feet of those cars and see the weight shift and see the things that happens to them that we don't get the perspective of on camera, nor from our vantage point here in the tower.
During the 10th anniversary celebration social here in June at Atlanta Motorsports Park, I was in the passenger seat for one of the Lotus drives that they did on track, and that really gives you a perspective of just how aggressive things are out on this track, where when we announce, it seems like the drivers have a little while when they come out of turn 4 to get down to turn 6. And when you're in the car, you realize there is a turn 5. They're hard on the gas up through the gears, and then suddenly they're setting up to the left side of the track, and then they're hard on the brakes to bring things down. Attention in the pit area. The grid is open for the downforce cars. Downforce cars, the grid is open. Please make your way down. On the
so downforce drivers, remember, grid is now open. Grid is now open, so get those cars ready to roll, please. The downforce cars, grid is now open. We continue on here. We're 18 minutes into this race, so we're coming up on a white flag coming out right now as our leader comes by. So Keegan Hall has brought us into what will be our final lap, John.
That's right. Brent Landry just getting a little right arm workout there with the white flag out, so just a few more turns for our Spec Miata class in our opening race here in round number 6, as Keegan Hall really recovered after that bobble on the opening lap in turn 6, and now he is once again just out to almost a 3-second lead on the course.
Yeah, Keegan Hall comes down for the final time into turn number 5. As you mentioned, you don't really think about turn 5 unless you're out there. There is a turn there. Coming into turn 6, here comes our drivers by for the final time. There you see Chris Branham in his car heading down to that area of the racetrack as well. Branham exits off turn number 6. Great shot there as Branham works his way over toward turn 7. He will disappear down the hill, and we will start to watch this final lap as it comes off turn number 16 or 15 in just a few moments, and we will see our leader. Will it be Keegan Hall, who has come on strong here in the last half of this race after making up for a first lap bobble in turn number 6? He has made his way to the forefront right now and has a handy lead over Chris Branham as this final lap is underway.
Just on the bottom of the screen, you can see some of those downforce cars. Their 20-lap pre-final will be coming up after the Spec Miata, but first we should get to enjoy seeing Keegan Hall sweep across the finish line, and there we see it. Keegan Hall takes the double checkered flags and wins the pre-final this morning at Atlanta Motorsports Park. Next car coming across the line, there's Chris Branham settling in once again just about 3 seconds back. So congratulations to Hall on picking up an early win here. He will start on the pole in the Spec Miata final after lunch.
And Jordan Coker, of course, in that E30 BMW. I believe he has completed or is completing his lap, or he may have taken it to the pit area. Regardless, he will be the winner in his class as we get this pre-final finished up and get ready to head toward the finals coming up this afternoon after lunch. Apparently Jordan Coker pulled off a little earlier, so we have missed him coming on to pit road. We've got downforce cars ready to go now. They're getting those cars lined up. They're getting right behind our safety car, so in just a few moments we'll be pulling them out onto the racetrack. And, John, we have a decent field of downforce cars here today, and starting out on the pole for this one today, a name with which we are familiar here at Atlanta Motorsports Park, the youngster Rayden Nickel out of Houston, Georgia, going to be our first one out on the racetrack today.
Alongside Nickel will be the driver out of Mahomet, Illinois, Chris Hunes. Picked up at least one win here this year. About 0.8 of a second difference between our top two. Making up our second row, Adam Brickley will be driving the number 1 machine, and alongside Brickley will be Greg Folger. Third row, William Layton and David Mason, and then starting shotgun on the field, Andrew Nagy in the 139. Now, Charles, we are going to have some fun with this class. Just about every car is white in nature with small numbers, so we'll be straining and struggling to indicate which car is which car.
Every time at lunch, when we're having lunch with these drivers down there, I implore them, get a different helmet color. Somebody do something where we can differentiate these drivers apart. A few of them have done that, but not many. So we'll see how we do as to ferret out who is who on the racetrack.
Well, viewers, we do encourage you to connect with Atlanta Motorsports Park on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, so you can see about some of the fun events that are happening here, as well as upcoming races. As I mentioned earlier, October 22nd and November 5th are the 7th and 8th rounds of the championship series on the main track. Over at the kart track, they will be back in action for the 8th and final round of the championship series on October 29th. Charles, I know we've had a lot of fun announcing the karts over there, and for the first time this year, they are having a winter shootout series, so they've added a couple of weekends, November 19th and 20th. That's a Saturday, Sunday. They'll have back-to-back action on the kart track, and then they'll be back December 10th and 11th for rounds 3 and 4 of their winter shootout series.
Well, John, as you know, and many of the folks at many of the tracks that I work at know, this is my final year of race announcing, and so I'm glad they've extended the season. That gives me another handful of races that I will do before I hang it up at the end of the year. So after 49 years of race announcing, this is going to be my final year, and thankfully, Atlanta Motorsports Park is going to extend that career just a couple of races longer.
Charles, I'm a weatherman by trade, so I make a lot of forecasts. So here we go. This could be a horrible forecast, but I don't think you'll make it a month before you're waiting to get back into the booth, just the way racing gets into your blood.
Waiting to get back and actually doing it may be two different things, but I am not gone forever. I will show up on occasion and do special races and be available. You know how it is being a regular weekly racing announcer. I just don't want to have to be there every Friday and Saturday night from 5 in the afternoon till midnight, as I've done for the last 49 years.
Yeah, I can imagine it's the getting up for church part in the morning. That part gets a little difficult there.
That has been somewhat difficult, but pretty much every Sunday morning I'm in front of my Sunday school class at 9 o'clock. I did a race in Wytheville, Virginia. Left the racetrack at 1 in the morning from Wytheville, Virginia, and still was able to be in front of my Sunday school class at 9 a.m. It wasn't very bright, but I was there.
I can imagine you were needing prayers on that Sunday morning there. Here we see our downforce cars just out on their parade lap behind the pace car driven by Rachel Heiler. As you can see, most of these downforce cars white in color, and once they get stacked out, I was able to look down and see that Raiden Nichols' 93 machine has green trim on it, so that'll be one of the differentiators that we see out there.
Yeah, Raiden usually has that 93, and he has a little bit of green on there, so we can find him in there. In just a few moments, we'll get the green and get going with our downforce cars. Now, the reason these are called downforce, of course, the body style, the wing on top, the way the aerodynamics work across these cars. They're called a number of different things. The Primal Racing School is here. These cars sometimes are called Primal cars. They're sometimes called XR1s, XR3s. They have a number of different names due to the model of the car itself.
Or the radicals.
Radical cars, they're called that just because of the style in terminology of road course racing. It is a radical style of vehicle. So therefore, we got a lot of different names for these.
Well, and the biggest difference, these are rear engine cars, most likely your street car in your garage at home, as well as the Spec Miata's front engine rear wheel drive cars. These radicals are mid engine, or the engines behind the driver, with powering the rear wheel. So we see our field is stacked up here as we have our drone cam shot as they're making their way down the front straightaway.
Yeah, they're reminiscent of the old, this is going to bring something back you don't even know about probably. The Pantera, first mid-engine car that they came out with. This was somewhere in the mid-60s, I think, was the Pantera. They're sort of like that with a mid-engine.
Well, wait, wasn't the Corvair a rear-engine
Corvair
car,
was completely rear-engine,
okay.
Yeah. Pantera was mid-engine.
So here we see a great shot as the drivers charge up towards turn 2 and 3 from our pole cam and then work their way around the carousel at speed just over the hedges here in the North Georgia mountains.
Well, they come down the hill about evenly spaced. We got a couple of good battles going on there for third and fourth position. We got a good battle going on as they head down, trying to break to the inside. Oh, can't do it as we stay in that same order. They work their way off. I do know a bit of difference in the rear wing. One has a blue wing and one has a red wing. So blue now leads red as they head down toward turn number 9.
Here we're looking down from our drone cam. You get a look at the end of the front straightaway. Then the drivers work through turns 10, 11, then up that hill into turn number 12. When they last came by our vantage point, Nickel was leading Chris Hune. Then it was a gap back to Greg Folger, and really a good 3-car battle for third place.
Yeah, Folger and Layton and Mason are all battling very hard for that position right there. We met Greg Folger last time we were here. They're just getting started in racing and enjoying their time, and they wanted to make sure that I knew that their name was pronounced just as the coffee without the S, so it is Folger.
So Raiden Nickel out to a hearty lead early on, and he's already through turn number 1 and working his way up to the carousel.
So Chris Hune battling right now with Adam Brickley. I believe that is your battle for second and third, and those drivers getting a pretty tight battle going on. Another good battle is back for 5th and 6th position.
So from our vantage point, we do see Raiden Nickel is your leader. He's already exited turn 6. Behind him, looked like Brinkley was the next car on the track. He was able to get by Chris Hune at some point during the opening lap. Great view from our drone cam looking down on the track. At the end of the front straightaway is actually turn number 10. Then the drivers will hit turn 11 and then go uphill into turn number 12. Now the drone cam slides over. You're seeing the exit of turn 14 into 15 right through the woods here. So a long, sweeping left-hand triple apex corner. Raiden Nickel notches another lap in the lead. And then it is the number 1 car of Brinkley and then the 129 of Folger running in third. So and then William Layton. The one car I don't see is Chris Hune out there. Don't know if he's had some mechanical issue. There was Chris Hune going by, so I don't know what kind of issue Hune had early in the going.
Well, Hune is shown right now as our third place car, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on with Hune. Here comes our Raiden Nickel car around turn number 6. There you see a great battle as they head off down from turn 4. That's actually off turn number 2, working their way up the hill into turn 4, and we've got a good battle going on there. That is the battle, I believe, between Brickley and Folger.
That last battle on the track was between Nagy and Mason. So drivers throughout the field battling hard. You could see them right off the exit of turn number 6. So Mason and Nagy battling for 6th place.
I noticed
right
Andrew
now.
Nagy got a little high coming off of turn 6. He still remains in the final position on the racetrack, but he was trying a different line to see if he could gain a little more momentum coming off of that particular corner.
Much quicker times in our downforce class. Raiden Nickel doing laps about 1 minute 20 seconds, working out to an average speed that's about 88 miles an hour, which is the speed that makes time travel possible is one thing, but that is really fast.
That is very fast on this road course because there's a lot of braking going on. For instance, as you follow Raiden Nickel right now down into turn number 6, you'll see that he slows down to a probably 15, 20 miles per hour to make that hairpin turn. So to have an 88 mile per hour average means that there's somebody doing some moving on during the straightaways.
And these Radical cars are not high horsepower cars. The biggest thing is that they are very light. I mean, we're probably talking probably about the weight of those Legends cars that we had talked about earlier, Charles. There may be, I would say they're less than 200 horsepower. Most street cars are more powerful than that, but they just don't have any weight to them. So these are made purely for speed.
And there you see a great shot from our drone as the cars work their way through turn 14. up into 15. Here they're coming to 16 right now. There's your leader. Raiden Nickel has made his way by. Adam Brickley comes by right now as well. So these drivers heading into our next lap as Nickel leads them in front of the condos. He's going up to turn number 2 right now. Raiden Nickel out front. And the camera shot, you look at it, and John, we look out there and see it. The camera shot looks like he's going slow. You look out there, and he is flying on the racetrack. It's amazing the difference that 3 dimensions make.
Yeah, he is trucking, even though these are not trucks by any means. Just looking at my notes, if these are SR3 radicals, about 225 horsepower, which is about what you see on most street cars out there, or I wouldn't even say high-end street cars, but most mid-line street cars.
Yeah,
but
back in the day, a 283 or a 289 Chevy or Ford engine, that's about what they produced, 180 to 225 horsepower. And then, of course, there were the guys that could somehow get 450 horses out of them. I don't know how that happened.
But those would be in a car that would probably weigh close to 3 tons.
That's right.
And these radicals, probably looking at under a ton. I'm looking at some numbers here. They're lighter than the Miata cars, which are 2,400 pounds. So that F equals MA part of the equation, they have minimized the mass on these cars so they can really maximize acceleration.
Less MA, more F.
Well, less M would mean more A.
Less M, more A. Okay, there we go.
How did a science discussion break out during the middle of our pre-final here for our radical class?
It was a science monologue. It was not a discussion. I did not contribute much to that program. All right, here they go down into turn number 2. Once again, Raiden Nickel is into 3 as he continues to blister this racetrack right now. Nickel is your leader. He brings it off turn 4 and heads to what can be a treacherous turn number 6, the hairpin turn. He brings it down the hill, flying down that hill on the binders quickly, and there he goes, executing perfectly on the rumble strips, just tags the rumble strips on the outside of that race car, and then over the little rise down into turn number 7.
Nickel was the dominant force in Spec Miata in the 2021 season here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. Charles, as you indicated, he's moved on from Miata, and he's in the downforce class here. He does travel to other courses and runs Miata, and I've followed him on social media, picked up some podium finishes across the Southeast as he continues his racing development.
Yeah, and of course the family moved here. They chose this area of the country because that put him in proximity of so many tracks that he could get experience at. So this was an intentional move for his racing career. Now keep in mind, I think Raiden he may have turned 14 at this point, but he's still a youngster, and the family made the decision that he had some natural talent, which obviously he does. They have fostered that talent now in every way possible and have moved him up to the downforce cars at this particular racetrack. So he is trying to get his background at many different racing facilities, and I always encourage young drivers especially. That's one of the things that makes drivers really hone their skills, is trying out different tracks and learning how to adapt quickly to different conditions and different racetracks.
We've also seen him on the kart track. I don't know if he's been there this year, but it's fun when he is able to make an appearance there. If you walk down the hallway here in the main track facility, there's a record board, and Raiden Nickel's name is in several of the slots there on the kart track, whether it's the K100s, whether it's the tags, whether it is the LO206s. He has several records as he's aged up through the different age divisions over there.
And I have interviewed Raiden on a radio show before, and not only is he qualified behind the wheel, he's a marketable young man. He's got good communication skills. He's going to be a great find for some corporate team or corporate sponsor down the road. Got a good future ahead of him.
So Raiden Nickel out to substantial lead, just about 8 seconds ahead of Adam Brinkley, and then Greg Folger, Chris Hune, and William Layton rounding out your top 5.
Still got a while to go right now with our drivers as the clock ticks on.
So here we are with Nickel. He's working his way down into turn 6 once again, and then he exits off that corner. You see those rumble strips that are there? Drivers can get a little naughty if they get too wide off the exit of turn 6. The rumble strips there, they're allowed to put 2 tires over the edge. If they put 4 tires over the edge, and if one of our race directors sees that, they may be subject to a penalty like a drive-through in the pit lane. So.
Yep. And, of course, all of our results here that we give are unofficial because these drivers do have to go through a bit of post-race inspection, and if any penalties are assessed, that obviously is not shown on our unofficial results as we indicate them when they cross the stripe. So race results are always unofficial until deemed proper by the officials. So Raiden Nickel now with almost 11 minutes into this, so we've got about 9 more minutes to go to finish up this race here for our summer championships. Raiden Nickel, at least for the downforce divisions, in our pre-race final, will be coming back for the actual races a little later on. Raiden Nickel is our race leader at the halfway point. He is in the 93. You see him on the screen right now. Adam Brickley is in the number 1. He is your second place car. Greg Folger is in the 129. He runs in third. Chris Hune in the 53 is fourth. William Layton in the number 78 is fifth. David Mason in the 138 is sixth, and Andrew Nagy in the 139. What'd you have, John?
That's Brickley on screen there, just getting through turn number 6. I could see from my vantage point when Raiden Nickel was cornering 6, Brickley was in the middle of the carousel, so that just shows you a 12-second lead, what 12 seconds looks like here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. A dominating performance for Nickel in the opening round, as we see one driver getting a little loose coming off turn 6, and that was the 129 of Greg Folger battling with Chris Hune for third.
Well, Folger and Hune, they've got a great battle going on. You have to understand, while many of these drivers in this division, there you see Nichols shoot by as he crosses start-finish once again. While many of these drivers are battling the racetrack, drivers always enjoy battling each other. And there you've got a good side-by-side battle going on as those two drivers continue to be as close together as anybody else on the racetrack. Here you see this is possibly Folger. Tell me who this is with the red wing that's coming into turn number 6 right now.
Let's see what number comes around. I see that's the 139. So that is Nagy.
That is Nagy.
Who might be going a lap down here as Nickel has just come through turn number 6. So he's just about 10 seconds back. We might see Nickel sweep up Nagy before this race ends.
I have a feeling that's going to happen. We've still got a good 6 or 7 minutes left in this particular race, so I believe you're going to see Nickel overtake Nagy possibly this lap or certainly the next lap as they make their way by.
Charles, when you were talking how the race results are unofficial here, it is typically at the scales where drivers would run into the most difficulty. I don't see them weighing the downforce cars, but the Spec Miata drivers do a lot of calculations to figure out how much fuel to put in the car, where to set weight so that they want to be at the minimum weight they can, but if they go too low, sort of like the Price is Right, you go bust.
Well, John, last time we were here, it was an interesting situation. We had a driver disqualified after the race was over due to mufflers being too loud.
Okay.
And so, but we found out later he was not disqualified because of the mufflers. He was disqualified because he ignored the black flag that was given out several times. So there were several factors that went into play on that particular thing, more than just at the scales.
Yeah, those stewards get a little upset when you don't heed their black flag. As you see a pass here in through turn 6. That was Nickel shooting by Andrew Nagy. So Nagy giving space to our race leader. And now we can see Nickel halfway down the back straightaway as Brickley in second place is just exiting the carousel. So lap after lap seems like Nickel is adding 1, maybe 2 seconds a lap.
And, we were talking about the possibility that was going to occur probably on that lap or the next lap. And Raiden timed it just perfectly so it would be right in front of our vantage point so we could see that happen. So made for television moment right there.
Now, Charles, it's different in the dirt world that we follow quite a bit. This year it's been that droop rule that they enforce after the race that's caught a few drivers where they end up jacking up the car, and how the suspension drops down to the ground is really roiling the world of dirt late model racing.
2 years ago when they instituted the droop rule, I had many drivers tell me, stupidest rule we've ever heard of in our lives. Don't want anything to do with it, can't stand it. And now I know at least 3 of those drivers that have won races because the driver who finished ahead of them did not pass the droop rule, so their opinion has changed somewhat.
It's mellowed. Their stance may have mellowed.
Just a bit.
Winning will do that to you.
They work their way through the carousel right now. You see that is that's Nagy, I believe, in that car that's working his way down the hill. And now you see more of those cars heading into turn number 4.
That might be our second place there, Brickley. I'm trying to see that. Nickel just went by our vantage point off 6, and there's Nagy, who is 1 lap down. So this is Brickley heading into turn number 6 right now. He is 17 seconds behind Raiden Nichols. So Nichols just consistently adding 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap to that gap.
You see both those two drivers, Nagy and Bickley, both have the little red tips on their wings, so that's an indicator of which of those cars are on the track. Nickel goes by start-finish once again. He has completed his 6th or 8th lap on the track, and now he's got another car that's right in his sights.
Actually, he just went by their start-finish line right now to put lap number 12 on the board. Excuse me, lap 13 as the scoring monitor updates. Nickel charges up through turns 2 and 3. He'll sweep through the carousel once more. A long sweeping, basically like going around a rotary and exiting on the road that you came out of. And now he will charge downhill through the kink and 5, and he will light up the brakes here into turn 6. A tight right-hander, a little bit over the curbs on the inside, and then he's back on the gas down the back straightaway.
Then Nickel disappears down toward turn 7. A good battle going on in front of him. David Mason and William Layton now will be the next drivers that Raiden is going to be encountering. We've got 3 minutes or so left in this pre-final, so it's possible that he will catch those drivers and try to work his way around them before the end of this race. So we await our drivers coming off turn 16. Here they come right now. That's that battle we were talking about between the 138. That is the car of David Mason and William Layton behind him in the 78, and there is Nickel coming by. So he is closing in on those two drivers that are trying to battle it out for the last spot on the racetrack, but Nickel has them within sight as they head up toward that big carousel turn.
On our drone cam here, as they come around the back end of the speedway, we did see some side-by-side action, but now we're going to zoom back in on our leader, Raiden Nickel, once again sweeping around that carousel. You can see that green wing side panel as well as the trim on the front of the car.
So Nickel comes down the hill. These two drivers obviously have had a little bit of difficulty with turn number 6 so far. Nickel has no difficulty with it. He picks up some spots on the racetrack, at least some feet on the racetrack, we should say, not positions, but feet as he starts to close in on them. Final laps are ensuing right now. We're getting very close to getting a white flag.
Yeah, we're at 18.5 minutes, so I imagine we'll see the white flag next time by. We don't do a set number of laps. It's 20 minutes, and then whatever amount of time, you know, just to make it finish, as we're seeing a couple of clinch flags go out from our flag stand right now, as Brent Landry's using an old NASCAR sign to our drivers.
But he's not as flamboyant as some of the flagmen that we have seen over the years, though. Here he comes by, and 2 to go. White flag is out for Raiden Nickel right now.
So Raiden Nickel charges into turn 1. Let's see if he's able to get by Mason and or Layton.
Well, there he goes by
lap.
1.
Already got by Mason, so now he will set his sights on William Layton while trying to race other drivers and hit his marks around this course. Just as a reference, we now see Brickley coming down the front straightaway. He just crossed the start-finish line now as Nickel is already past turn 5 and on the brakes for turn 6.
And Raiden has already gotten by our last car on the track, or moved up by Layton as well. So he has passed 3 cars, put them a lap down as this final lap continues on. Our leader goes into turn number 7. There you start to see the shot of turn 16. Driver's going to be coming off there in just a few moments, and Nickel, of course, will be the driver that takes the checkered flag. That will be happening here in a moment. Drivers still spread throughout the race facility. They disappear now off down into turns 10, 11, 12. There's that complex you see with Nickel starting to pull away.
Beautiful view of some of the scenery you see here, lots of green trees. Charles, I imagine when we are back for round number 7, some of these trees will start changing as we truly get into fall here and the North Georgia mountains.
John, what's your prediction? Are we going to have a beautiful fall as Nickel takes the checkered flag and wins this one? Beautiful fall colors this year. What's the humidity and the ground water like to produce good flowers and good foliage this year?
After this hot summer, I'm just looking forward to the cool, crisp hints of autumn that we've been experiencing this week. I'm looking forward to that continuing. I'll be honest, I've never thought the foliage in the Atlanta area of Georgia is all that great. It seems like it's the flowering season of spring is a lot better. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to coming up here to the mountains of Georgia. We're just about an hour north of the metro Atlanta area here in Dawsonville. So, Charles, I'm hoping it's a good foliage season. Really tends to drive a lot of the tourism here. A lot of apple picking up towards Jasper, as well as Helen will be kicking off its Oktoberfest celebrations right soon, I imagine. When you go through, if you try to drive through Helen on any weekend, forget it. It's just bumper-to-bumper traffic going through that little now German-themed Alpine village.
Absolutely. And, of course, folks making their way up Georgia 400 go almost by this facility. So as you're heading to the mountains, stop by and enjoy some personal karting time at Atlanta Motorsports Park Karting Complex. All right, let's tell you who our finishers are. Rayden Nickel gets the win. Adam Brickley finishes in second in the number 1. Chris Hune in the 53 takes third. Greg Folger in the 129 is fourth. William Layton in the 78 fifth. David Mason in the 138 is sixth. And Andrew Nagy in the 139 rounds out the field. Drivers are on their cool down lap right now. We are going to cool down and freshen up with some lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with the finals coming up a little later this afternoon. So we ask you to tune back in to Facebook Live and also on YouTube as we come to you live here at Atlanta Motorsports Park for another day of round 16 here for our championship this season. John, it's always great working with you. Rare that we get to do that nowadays. Nowadays we all go our separate ways, and used to we were able to work together just about every weekend, but now it's a treat to get to work with you in the booth once again.
Absolutely. From drone cam here, you could just see some of the new skid pad and the, what do they call it, the ice hill. At the bottom of the shot there, just some of the other amenities. They have driving courses here, whether it's stunt driving or if you want your team to learn driving and defensive driving, they have some amenities here for all sorts of racing. So as it says on the screen, Charles and I will be back at 1:30. We'll have our finals for our Spec Miata and our downforce classes.
All right, good job, guys.
Unfortunately, today's my first day back, so I had no idea what I'm walking into. We didn't have a laptop somewhere. My laptop's in the back somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. How have you been?
Trying to catch up on sleep.
Reduce the friction
As it comes.
If possible, right?
We'll need to mention that on the broadcast.
We do, yeah. Don't you dare leave without taking that. You and I'll both be shot.
Yes, no, I will definitely get that from you.
We need to pray his calling. We need to get Will. We need to get Will on the mic. That's why.
And ladies and gentlemen, can we have your attention, please? Grid is now open. Grid is now open for our Spec Miatas and, of course, our E30 cars. Grid is now open, so Grid is open now. We'll be back with more information coming up a little later on, but we wanted to let you know that right now, Grid is open. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Atlanta Motorsports Park. We are glad to have you here this afternoon as we talk about what's going on in the world of racing here. And John Matthews has joined me in the booth. I'm Charles Head, by the way. And we've got a full-fledged group of folks around. John, it's football season.
Yeah,
we see that right now.
Well, and you can see the building where we were there, and as part of the social that will be going on later in the afternoon. They have that big football inflatable. So, Charles, maybe before we're done, we're going to have to get down to that inflatable and see. We're going to battle it out, a true battle of the announcers on a inflatable gridiron here.
Well, it's going to be a battle coming out on the racetrack. We'll have the Spec Miatas coming out in just a moment. Field a little light today as far as numbers is concerned.
Although, race fans, you can see on the kart track right now, it looks like the Pro karts have gone away. It looks like the public arrive and drive karts are out there. So once again, want to say if you want that sensation of speed, you can head on up to just west of Dawsonville, Georgia, and do some public karting. Those karts don't look it, but they will do upwards of 55 miles an hour. Sometimes Charles and I are entertained as the drivers come right through turn 9, the U-turn there. Charles, that seems like Calamity Corner for the public karters. For the pro karters, it's different turns on the course, but boy, the first time the public karters rumble out of the gatehouse and come down the hill and head through that hairpin, it's an over-under of 3 carts of how many are going to spin out there.
Yeah, it's one of those things of, oops, what am I doing over here in the grass? I did not realize this turn was so tight. It is a hairpin turn. Our drivers in our main track, the Spec Miatas, have made their way out onto the track right now, so they're out there, and it looks like we are minus our E30 BMW. He did not complete every lap of the first race. There may have been a problem with that car. So we do have 2 cars on the track right now. John, during the break at lunch, we were noticing, you pointed out the elevation changes in this track, and what we found out that is really true is different than sort of what we thought. We sort of thought around the turn 4 area was the highest place on the racetrack, and that is not necessarily the case, apparently.
No, the map shows that around turn 11 is the highest point on the track.
And I can't imagine that from what we see right now, but
might be up towards where turn 12 is. The low point on the track we're clear about is turn 14. Once drivers go through that blind corner, downhill and around and around and around to the left, it does drop out and bottom out in turn 14.
And you mentioned that blind corner. We talked about that earlier. You have you exit off of that corner, and you can't see anything but sunshine and trees, and then all of a sudden you have to make a turn when you exit, right as you exit the corner. So for drivers who are unfamiliar with this track or their muscle memory is not quite there yet for what they've done as far as experience is concerned, that could be very treacherous.
Not to mention, we've talked about weight loading. The car would definitely unload when you crest that hill, so if you step on the gas hard there, you could easily see a rear-wheel drive car getting light and loose there, and you could easily see a case for that car coming around. Until once they're on the downhill, then the weight loading will get back in place.
We'll watch Rachel Heiler peel off down the I guess you call it pit lane, as that you see it delineated with that blue barrel there. In just a moment, we'll see Rachel take the pace car by, so she will bring the safety car off the track. She does so right now as our two drivers work their way side by side. They come by. We've got Keegan Hall and Chris Branham as they come down that front straightaway. And, John, we realize that some of these drivers reach as much as 150 miles an hour. Obviously, probably not in these particular cars, but there are cars that do race up to 150 miles an hour on this very long straightaway here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. Green flag is in the air. They head down. Turn 1 is a toughie. Tell us about it.
Keegan Hall in the dark car is on the inside. He was the winner of the pre-race earlier, and he's ahead of Chris Branham, at least initially. Charles, you're right. That is the slowest portion on the course, as we're going to see side by side here. Branham working up to the inside, but through turn 2 and 3, he decided to file down. Turn 1 is, in theory, the slowest point on the course. These Miatas are probably doing 30 to 40 miles an hour through there. When we see the Radicals flash by the start-finish line, though, they could be at speeds of 140, 150. So a heavy, heavy braking area down into turn 1. And another heavy braking area we see right on the screen now, the entrance to turn 6. We see Keegan Hall carve a nice line through that corner, as did Chris Branham. In the pre-final earlier, Keegan Hall had almost sent it into turn 6 on the first lap, backed out and lost a lot of track position. But that's the corner we saw Branham lock up his tires 3 times as he was entering. So don't know what adjustments the drivers may have made either to the car or to their driving style. So they've headed off into the back forest, and we will see who is in the lead when we get back out coming off turn 14.
Well, as you said, those drivers making a great entrance and exit coming off of turn number 6 that time, so doing a good job of it. We've not seen anybody go crazy on the kart track. I've been kind of peeling an eye over there. There you see them coming out of turn number 14 right now. They work up 15. Keegan Hall is your race leader, and Chris Branham in second spot right now, and they make their way by. It's going to be Hall as your leader officially on the leaderboard, and Branham. And, of course, you see those two cars staying pretty close together. We know, as you mentioned, on that first lap, when Keegan Hall locked the tires up going into turn number 6, that allowed Branham to get ahead, and he had quite an advantage. And then Hall was able to work back because Branham had those problems later in the race as he would lock those tires up, probably more so in 6 than anywhere else, but we noticed that happened in 1 also in that tight braking area. Now they're starting to distance themselves just a little bit as they work down the hill in turn 5.
So another great camera angle there showing the outside of the track looking into turn 6. There we see Hall carve a nice line, a little bit wider for Branham, but no locking up of the tires, so maybe 10 car lengths between the two of them. It's a match race at this point. Charles, one of the other shots we saw, it's a beautiful day here in North Georgia. We're peaking out in the upper 70s for temperature and just a light breeze ruffling the trees and the flowers out there. As Charles, it looks like you were pointing to the kart track. I did see one car had spun around, so action aplenty on the public karting course. But on our main track, it is a match race. Keegan Hall, Chris Branham, they're going to be matched up for 20 minutes. Almost feels more like a wrestling match at that point, Charles. The match will go on for 20 minutes until we get a winner at the
Yeah,
end.
there you see our abode for the day. We are inside one of those windows here at Atlanta Motorsports Park up in the second part of the tower. There you see our leader coming by. He is coming off turn 15 right now. That's where you exit off to go to the pit lane. And you mentioned just beside that red safety truck over there is the new skid pad. There's quite a few things that have been improved on during the off season here at Atlanta Motorsports Park back in the winter. And one of the new additions is a greater, better skid pad than they had before. So explain a little bit. We've been on that skid pad before. Tell them a little bit about what that's all about.
Well, when it's dry, it seems a lot like a polished concrete floor, like you would say maybe a Costco or a Walmart. But when they put water down on it, it becomes extremely slick. It used to be just a circular skid pad, but then there's the hill portion as well, and it simulates driving on ice. Once they put the water on it, it is a great way for drivers to learn what it's like to drive on ice. We don't get it too often here in Georgia, but occasionally we do. And when we do, it's like Armageddon out there on the roads once you get a little ice out there. So this is a controlled, safe way for drivers to practice. When they've had socials here, they'll use that for autocross at times. They'll call it watercross, where they'll set up cones and use the paddock and have some course that the drivers will loop through. From a standing start, they'll get up to speed, go through the cones, and then they have to stop in the box at the end, and the quickest time wins. These aren't tremendously long courses. Usually they'll run through them in 20 to 25 seconds. But the time we were here in the summer, they used the slick hill, which made for – you could really see the drivers having to nurse the cars around some of the corners. A lot of sports car enthusiasts are members here, and they'll bring out the high horsepower, which is great when we're on maybe the south paddock and they're flying around on dry pavement. But when you see them on that wet, slick area, you can really see them turn the wheels, and the car's not turning. The car's just plowing straight ahead.
You and I both follow late model dirt racing to a pretty good degree. We see a lot of super late model drivers and, of course, lower divisions there. And I would urge any of those drivers to come and use the skid pad. I think it might improve their driving skills on the dirt a little bit.
So here we are with pole cam as the drivers flash down the short straightaway between 1 and the paddock. Really gives you a view of what turns 2 and 3 are, a lot sharper than they look from up here in the booth. As Keegan Hall's pulled out to about a 3.5 second lead as he charges back downhill through 5, and now he'll get on the brakes into 6. So welcome once again. This is round 6 of the championship series here on the main track at Atlanta Motorsports Park. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook Live, we encourage you to give us a like, put a comment down in the comments section. Let us know where you are watching from today, and then give a share. Let your friends know what you are watching today. It really helps us, as we said earlier, beat the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, and subscribe, because we'll be back here again very soon at Atlanta Motorsports Park. A lot of activities left throughout this year at this facility, and we always look forward to that. As you mentioned, the fall colors will be coming around soon, and it's going to be a very picturesque view from any viewing spot here at Atlanta Motorsports Park, because we are surrounded by the North Georgia mountains, and it's going to be a great place to see some fall coloring come about. Chris Brandon has not let Keegan Hall get completely out of sight. He's still keeping him in his sights, and as we noted in that first lap of the first pre-final this afternoon, or this morning, Keegan Hall had trouble in turn number 6, and when he did, Brandon was able to overtake him. So all it takes is one bad corner, and all of a sudden you've got a tight race going once again. There you see such a wonderful shot of those two drivers as they make their way by the hedges, and that is coming off turn number 1, and there you see a bit of that elevation change, and a turn that we don't really talk a lot about is turn number 3, and that's one that you saw there, how far the cars go down and have to make that turn. Quite a shift for the weight on those cars going into that particular corner.
Suspension is under quite a load here, not just side to side, but also front to back as drivers maneuver through the elevation changes. There you see Keegan Hall once again carve a nice line right around turn 6. Drivers can stray a couple of wheels over those blue and white curbs. If they put all 4 wheels up there, well, then they might get a flag from the steward that there's a penalty coming. But there you saw Hall well within bounds as he works his way through turn 11. Now they'll look slower here. That's a strongly uphill section through 12, and there's the blind section. Right now Hall can't see the road ahead of him until he's midway through turn number 13. And he's now in a sweeping downhill bend to turn 14. Right about where he is now is the lowest point on this track. It's 98 feet lower than the high point.
And congratulations to Jeffrey Farver giving us some excellent shots from the drone. We got to see everything that happened in that corner that we normally don't get a chance to get any viewing from due to various camera angles here. So good job with Jeffrey and the drone today.
So Keegan Hall sweeps by the start-finish line once again. Crossed flags held out by our starter, Brent Landry. So we have just about 10 minutes into the race, which means 10 more to go. In theory, they've done 6 laps, so we should get to about 12 laps in distance. We'll just see how things work out where drivers are against the clock. It's not a set distance. 20 minutes is the set time.
You mentioned these cars have suspension, and, of course, we talked about the shifting of the load, weight in the car, and so forth. These are spec cars, which means they have to meet minimum or certain specifications, and they're minimum things that they can do to cars. We come from a world of modified racing where a set of shocks may cost upwards of $10,000. Certainly not the case on these Spec Miatas. They have inexpensive materials as much as possible, yet still be of somewhat high performance in order to be racing ready, but yet it is an entry-level or a lower-priced division to get into road course racing.
Yeah, a lot of similarities to what you might see is the front-wheel drive class we have at a lot of dirt tracks, which is pretty much shell out the inside of the car, and maybe there's some tire changes, but you're right, there's not a ton of suspension upgrades or engine upgrades that go into these cars.
And they're older Miatas, too. We're not talking current models by any stretch of the imagination.
Do they even make Miatas anymore? I don't know if they've stopped making. They're just very popular amongst the the group that enjoys them. But, yeah, these cars most of them are built around the year 2000. So you're looking at a car that if it could – it would be legal to buy drinks at that point if it's more than 21 years old. Getting close to that point where in Georgia you could get that antique license plate on
That's
the car.
right. It doesn't take long to get an antique license plate. I think I should have one of those plastered on my back. Anyway, they head down into turn number 3 right now. Your leader is Keegan Hall as he works his way up around the big carousel turn here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. And Keegan Hall now has I don't know, quite a distance. I think we're up to about 4 seconds right now over Chris Branham as we're past the halfway point. The cross flags came out just a while ago, and that halfway point is due to being past 10 minutes, not necessarily a certain number of laps, but these drivers continue to race their way around the track right now. You hear them shifting gears and all those things that they need to do in order to be able to keep their RPMs up after coming off of that very slow turn number 6.
So Hall sweeps down through 10, and now he'll be into 11. Now this is the part that's sharply uphill. It looks like he's going slow. Well, it is because right there, just the hill fighting gravity. But right there is where the drivers drop through that blind spot in the corner. Almost a little bit of cloud cover coming over turn 13 there. So it's been a mostly sunshine-filled day, but just a few puffy fair weather clouds dotting the sky here in the middle of
the only
September.
way you can get a true indicator of how that elevation changes is by looking at the speed of the car when it goes up toward turn 14. It starts out fast, and then you can see the car just starts to move like an ant. It gets so slow up there. So that is the indication of how much that elevation changes when you can't actually see the three-dimensional shot on the screen.
So here are the drivers going to turn 1. You can really see them sweep all the way out to those curbs on the outside using every inch of road. They'll be hard on the gas, and you can even see in Hall's car still has working tail lights, so you can get an indication of where he's on the brakes into turn number 3. But through turn 4 so far, no brakes yet. The driver heading uphill just has to play with the throttle to control their speed through the corner.
John, I have to tell you this. The first race that I was obviously a circle track announcer for many, many years, and before I did my first road course race, and I did an SCCA race on the road course at Atlanta Motor Speedway during NASCAR weekend. And it was so odd to me when I looked down at the turns and saw brake lights come on. That was just something I was totally foreign to me at that point.
So these cars, when we do say spec, not quite street legal, but in a pinch, you might be able to pass a quick inspection from an officer driving down the road.
He would have to overlook a few items, I think, for that to be the case. They sweep wide off of turn 14 or 13 down into 14. That is, as you mentioned, the lowest point on the course, and that's quite an elevation change as they come down there. We mentioned earlier in the morning broadcast about a car winding up in the trees as they came off of that section right there. And you saw the area of grass. It was quite an adventure for him to wind up in the trees over there. That was a heck of a little ride.
Well, once grass gets wet, if you have any morning dew on it, there's almost no grip on it. You can see the drivers darting in and out of the sun and the shade here. The front stretch is in shade, but they're back into brilliant sunshine as they sweep down through turn number 1. So again, just some clouds moving overhead. No chance of rain this afternoon. I imagine if there was rain, they would keep driving. These cars do have treaded tires on them, although just a quick glance at them, you can tell there's a lot more racing rubber on them than a street tire. A lot fewer grooves in there.
You talked to some of the drivers prior to this morning's pre-final, and you were asking them specifically about how the cooler temperatures than we've experienced throughout the summertime would affect them. And they mentioned several things to you that the casual observer might not think about with cooler temperatures. Go through a few of those items.
The biggest thing is the brakes. With the cooler temperatures, when these drivers are hard on the brakes, say into turn 1 or turn 6, the brake disc heats up. Brakes won't work as well at that point, but then the drivers would be off the brakes as they head up towards turn 2 or down the back straightaway. There's a chance for the brakes to cool off. And when you have cooler temperatures, unlike the scalding heat of summer, the brakes will cool faster, which means that they'll work a little better the next time you're on the brakes. So it just gives, this cooler temperatures give a chance for drivers to be a little more aggressive with the brakes. Then everything cools off. In the summertime, these drivers would be so hard on the brakes, the discs would get glowing, they would be fading, and you can actually boil the brake fluid in the system, and at that point the pedal would just about go to the floor. As we just crossed just over 16 minutes on the clock, so we should still get a couple more laps here as we see Keegan Hall work his way down through turn 1. There you can really see an indication of just how much elevation drop there is, not just into turn 1, but even through the apex and off the exit. But yeah, with the cooler temperatures, the brakes should have a lot more longevity through the course of 20 minutes. Also, it can change the handling and maybe the air pressures used in the car. When it's going to be very hot, you need to lower the temperature a little bit. With cooler temperatures, maybe the drivers can add a pound or two of extra air so that when the tire heats up, it won't be as hot as on a hot day. The handling will be right. So drivers will have made their adjustments. They had the pre-final earlier today, and they get a chance to make additional tweaks when they're in the paddock. So once again on the track, we see Keegan Hall. He's pulled out to a 6.7 second lead over Chris Branham. Once again, Jordan Coker was not able to answer the call for this in his E30 class. He finished a few laps down in the pre-final. Some sort of issue had taken him off the track. So now we're following, you can see both our cars working up through turn 11 and then 12. They'll head through the woods forest section of the track, turns 13 and 14. A healthy lead right now for Keegan Hall as he charges through turn 15, and then he'll come up into 16 right here. That's the section of track that's modeled after the Eau Rouge complex at the Spa track where they run the Belgian Grand Prix. This is a Herman Tilke designed track, 2 miles, 16 turns, and 2 signature turns. One is that turn 15-16 complex. The other is where our leader Hall is going to charge up to as he goes through turns 2 and 3. He'll then enter this carousel around the water tower. It's almost a 270-degree turn, a triple apex left-hander that was modeled after the Nuremberg ring. So when Herman Tilke designed this course, a couple of signature complexes designed into this track just outside of Dawsonville. So here we see Keegan Hall once again through turn number 6. You can really see that Miata lean over to the left as the weight shifts away. Just a smooth time through that corner, and that lets him get a great amount of momentum down the back straightaway. And he's opened up, once again, about a 6-second lead over second place, Chris Branham. So drone cam just giving us some wonderful shots of our drivers as Hall continues to lead, sweeps down through 12, and then he'll be through that blind corner on 13. So some wonderful shots by Jeffrey Farver on our drone cam this afternoon, Charles.
Can I have your attention, please, here at Atlanta Motorsports Park? Drivers, we're going to grid Group 2 about 15 minutes early, so if you're not down there yet, you need to be there. Drivers, we need to grid about 15 minutes early in Group 2, so let's go ahead and get to the grid, please, now.
Charles, I do see as checkered flags are out, and just like that, Keegan Hall is your winner, just as we had just crossed the 20-minute mark, Charles. We had talked about it's 20 minutes plus when they finish. It was 20 minutes almost on the dot. So congratulations. Keegan Hall comes home with our Spec Miata final today in round number 6. Chris Branham comes home in second.
John, as we look down, from our vantage point looking straight down, we see the downforce cars now. They're on the grid, and we look at them. There is so much difference in these cars. How come we can't see that when they're actually on the racetrack?
I think part of it is I noticed that at our lunch break. The greens, the blues that we see on them, I think when you see the cars from the side, you can't see the top part of it. But looking at them with these stripes, we're going to go geek 80s here. It almost seems like Voltron out there. You have the green car and you have the blue car and the yellow car out there. But if we could see the cars from the top when they're running, we would easily know which
well, all
car
we can
is
see
which.
is the little section of the wing itself. We see that little rear wing, and we see just a little bit of color on those wings. Once we see those, it's kind of quick to try to look at a number still on the side of those cars, but they are more different today than I've seen them in the past. We'll put it that way. They're getting ready to get the grid off to head down to the staging area, and Radon Nickel, of course, as he has been most of the time, is the one up front, so he's heading down there right now. In just a few moments, we'll get everybody else set up. They're readying themselves right now. I think we're still waiting on one possible driver to get to the grid area, but we're just about ready to get these underway, starting a little earlier than normal because that race did not take very long for our drivers in the Spec Miatas today. So we'll be getting them lined up, ready to go for our downforce guys.
Looks like, if I'm looking at these downforce right, these are, I don't see grooves on these tires from up here. Maybe they have them, but a lot of grip on there as we see among the cars. Adam Brickley pulling off, getting a little bit of a push right now. He's in a almost white number 1 car. He'll be starting on the outside pole. Let's see if Chris Hune is not seated yet in his car, so let's see who else pulls off.
Well, he was a later arrival. We were trying to get him to the spot. He was the only driver that hadn't gridded earlier, so he has now done his thing, and so he's in good shape.
So we're seeing the rest of our cars pull away. And we're looking forward to 20 good minutes with them once they get on track.
We'll have them out ready to roll in just a few moments. There you see a good shot of the kart track going on. You see the competitors making their way up the hill. You know, we talk about the, I don't know what, you have a name for it, John, when the drivers are going up the hill and they're trying to ooden themselves. That's what I call it, ooden themselves with their heads up the, bob their heads to get up the hill. They don't do that in the, they haven't learned to do that like our professional karters have.
Well, I couldn't imagine doing it in a downforce car, but the term you mean on the rentals
the kart
over
track,
there.
Yeah.
I think the term I use is when you see an old bobsled. The reason it was called bobsled is they would start not by running next to the sled and hopping in. They'd sit in the sled and rock back and forth, like bobbing back and forth to get momentum to start the sled down the hill. That's where bobsledding actually got its name. It wasn't a bunch of Jamaicans running next, like sprinting next to
their
a sled.
head. Okay.
Yeah, they were bobbing back and forth to get momentum.
Well, and I always think, when I think of that, and I've used this quote with you before, I think of the David Letterman great line when he said, bobsled, luge is just like the bobsled, except it's all bob and no sled. So there we go.
Well, have you ever seen Skeleton?
No.
They use the same course as bobsled and luge, but the person goes head first where they're lying sort of on their chest and stomach. So they start, you know how luge starts sitting on the sled and they pull themselves through. Bobsled and skeleton, they start next to the whatever they're going to be using and they run next to it and then hop on it. So in bobsled, they push the sled and then climb into the middle. In skeleton, they run with one hand on it and then they sort of jump or flop and lay on it. But they're laying on their stomach, head just a couple inches from the ice, and you can imagine the real horrifying part is at some point you're going to head to a corner, and in a luge, at least your feet are blocking for you. In skeleton, you're going head first. But to see if you get the right photograph or slow-mo video, to see the look in their eyes, and they have a special helmet to be able to see out. It's really something amazing that they just seem I've heard compared to bobsled and luge, skeleton, they have the least control over it. So it is the slowest of the three disciplines, but wow, I mean, it just takes a lot of intestinal fortitude, I think, to go head first down a course.
I have talked with Jeffrey Bodine. We've had discussions. Of course, he has come on in the bobsledding world and made great strides in bobsledding for the USA. I mean, he's done a tremendous job of aerodynamics and those kinds of things. And he is as passionate about bobsledding as he was about NASCAR racing.
Okay.
And it's very interesting to hear you just mention the Olympics or mention bobsled, and sit back and let Jeffrey Bodine talk for 30 minutes, and he'll tell you everything you need to know and plenty more as well.
Bobsleds went through a period where they went through a lot of technological innovations. I know BMW was involved with making the sleds. In the last, say, 5 to 10 years, they've gone to a common body, which takes a lot of the money and research out of the engineering and really puts it back on the athletes and, I'll say, the driver. You know, what the driver is doing up front with their handles and how fast they push, where so much was on the aerodynamics of the sled design. They've kind of taken that out and really made it back what it should be about the athletes.
We have cars now on the race course. They are coming out there right now. So Rachel Heiler is leading them around turn number 4. Just a moment, we will be seeing them come through our vantage point, and we'll get a chance to take a look at those. Raiden Nickel leads the group around. He was the winner of our pre-final. John, run us through the list of drivers that we have and in the order in which they'll start.
Oh, there we can see the number 93 of Raiden Nickel. He will start on the pole, courtesy of winning the pre-final earlier today. Adam Brickley in the number 1 will pull up alongside. Second row, the number 53 of Chris Hune will be joined by 129 Greg Folger. In the third row, William Layton and David Mason will be on that row. They had a great battle through pretty much the entire 20-minute portion earlier today. And set to start last on the field, the 139 of Andrew Nagy. Now, we'll see how they actually line up, maybe if they didn't grid early enough, and we'll also get some colors for you. Raiden is in the green-trimmed car, and I know Brickley's car is stark white out there.
Okay, so, make some notations there as to who has the yellow fin and who has the red fin and who has the blue fin on the car. Yeah.
Almost, it reminds me when you'd go to the old bumper cars and you'd say, I want the red one or I want the green one out there when you go to an amusement park.
We're just about set to bring them by. We will watch Rachel peel off in just a second as they come off turn 14, and we'll see them as they come out of the tree area there. A great camera shot looking from that 14 and 15 complex area.
You can see how dark it's gotten outside, that really the entire track for now looks clouded over. We do see lots of blue sky from our vantage point. So there we see our field goodbye. You can see Raiden on the front row with the green stripes on what we'll call the bonnet of that car up at the front hood. So he will be on the inside as they head into turn 1 with Brickley alongside.
All right, they'll come down that long front straightaway. We're ready to get the green flag in the air. A caution is being shown. Now all of a sudden, green goes in the air. Everybody's looking good as they head down to turn number 1. That is a tough turn. You see all the brake lights come on, and they try to negotiate that hairpin turn.
So Raiden Nickel gets right to the early lead, and then we see the mostly white with the side red fin. That's Brickley in second place. Looks like Chris Hune settling into third.
So the red Brickley, well, we know that's red. So that's a good analogy to draw right there. Raiden Nickel brings them down the hill. It is quite down the hill. They are accelerating. However, they get to that big braking zone there. Raiden Nickel puts on the binders, turning into turn number 6. He executes it perfectly, as does so far everyone else in the field. There we got a pass going on at the back spot.
Yeah, what do we have? We have the 138 and the 39. So it looks like David Mason got back by Andrew Nagy.
Nagy had passed him coming off turn number 1, and that, of course, for him was an unusual place to be because he had been in the rear. He had a chance to move up a spot. Then he gained it back again once they got into turn number 6.
So if you're watching on the screen right now, that is you're seeing our vantage point. That's the main building here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. You can see the garages off to either side, as well as the paddock areas. Those can be utilized for parking, or when they have events here, whether it's stunt driving or autocross tracks, as our field sweeps around to complete lap number 1. Raiden Nickel leads. Adam Brickley is in second. Then it's Chris Hune, Greg Folger, and William Layton rounding out your top 5. They're going to charge past our pole cam, up into turn 2, and then onto the carousel.
John, you talked about the track being mostly under cloud cover. I remember back in the days of qualifying, whenever we used to have qualifying and pole day on Fridays and so forth, drivers would pray that they would go out on the track and cloud cover would come over for their laps of qualifying because obviously it plays a big part in the temperature of the asphalt and the opportunity for those tires to stick. So a little bit of cloud cover usually means better speeds, and certainly better cornering speeds here at a track like this where you have an opportunity to get better tire grip.
Absolutely. Just not having the sun beating down on the pavement will cool the temperatures a little bit. Earlier we talked about when the tires get hot, they get greasy and you lose grip. So having that cloud cover can cool the asphalt just enough to give someone a slight advantage if it was qualifying where it was one at a time.
Yeah, and even the slightest advantage is still an advantage. So that's what you're looking for, anything that you can get over the next person. We'll head off into turn 14 here in just a minute and see who's going to come through that area. Matter of fact, Raiden Nichols surprised me. He is already back on the front straightaway. Fastest part of the race course. We're estimating they run 110, maybe 120.
I think it could be higher. Average speed, by my math, is about 88 miles an hour that they're doing right now. So that knowing that they're slower points, they're well over 100 miles an hour, maybe flirting with 120 as they cross the start-finish stripe.
Well, they are making their way down the hill right now, down into turn number 5. They'll come into 6. Raiden Nichols starting to distance himself from Brickley and the rest of the field. We got a good battle shaping up there for second and third spot as Hune and Brickley. That's Brickley with the and Hune goes around. Chris Hune goes around. They got to watch him as they come off that corner. As Hune goes around, there's nobody to signal the drivers that there's an issue. They've got to go a little high to keep from getting in to Chris Hune. So Hune now gets his car righted on the track, so the 53 will take his place almost to the rear of the field.
He went from 3rd to 6th just as he was pressuring Brickley for 2nd. Charles, when we were here in June for one of the earlier rounds, Hune was leading going down into turn 1 and looped it down there, ended up in the sand trap. So Hune has had moments of brilliance as well as flashes of terror this season on the track, and I imagine sitting sideways off the exit of 6 is a very delicate spot to be, and unfortunately he was lost a ton of track spots.
And unless we have a caution, which is rare here, unless we have a full course caution, there's no way he's going to be able to catch up with this field. It's just impossible to do on a course of this size.
So when they come flashback by the stripe, Hune is in 6th place, so he was maybe 4 seconds behind our leader. He is now 21 seconds back, so he lost a full 17 seconds, which in racing terms is forever.
But he does have a fast car, so he's got some cars right in front of him as they work up the hill over in turn 4. Matter of fact, he's already pressuring one car to try to see if he can get by. I don't know exactly which car that is at the moment. That would be the car, I believe, that's in 5th position.
That's David Mason, who has the yellow side fin on.
There he goes.
We see Hune dive right down into turn 6, so he's revisiting where he spun out before. Steady hand this time around, so move Hune up to spot number 5.
Yeah, Hune, he's got cars in his sights, so over the next couple of laps he should be able to catch those and see if he can overtake them. As we mentioned, he does have a fast race car, so let's see if he can work his way back up as close to that number 2 spot or possibly into the lead if something happens with Raiden Nickel as we continue on in this race.
Well, there was one race earlier this year. Nickel used up his brakes to the point where you could take a pinky finger and push the brake pedal down, that everything was boiled out of the system. Don't know if that will happen today. For the moment, Nickel leads by 5.5 seconds over Adam Brickley. And there we can see our top 2 slice down out of turn 1 and head towards the carousel.
We've completed about 6 minutes of this race, so we're just past the 1/4 mark of this race right now. We see some more movement on the track.
Hune was able to move up past William Layton when they went through the back part of the course. So Hune is settled into 4th place. Now he's going to try to reel in Greg Foster for the base of the podium.
So let's see if Hune's going to be able to catch Foster. They work their way into the carousel turn. That is one of the great memorable turns here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. And they come to another not so picturesque, but a very important corner as they come into turn number 6. Let's see what happens here with these guys when they come through.
Hune maybe 12 car lengths behind Greg Folger, who's running in 3rd currently. So Hune had one absolutely horrible corner, but now he is atoning for that and working his way back up through the field. Heartbreak, though, that the battle we could have had between Hune and Brickley right when that incident happened.
Yeah, I think I don't know that we'll have that battle to ensue before the end of the race again, but I know one thing, Chris Hune is probably extremely aggravated at himself, and he is probably doing everything possible. Fastest lap times on the track probably being turned by Hune right now. He's right past just below Raiden Nickel as far as lap times are concerned.
Last time around, Raiden Nickel 1 minute 20.952 seconds, so just under that 121 mark as Chris Hune comes by, was able to get by Greg Folger for 3rd place. So Hune is on the charge after that one bad lap.
But Raiden Nickel is so far ahead, and just behind him, you've got Adam Brickley. He's got a long way to go to catch those two drivers. They are pulling away as we speak, so Chris Hune's got a lot of work left to do here this afternoon.
Here we are following Hune through the carousel. Behind Hune, Folger, Layton, and Mason, all within shouting distance at this point. Once again, we see Hune able to get through turn 6, nice and smooth that time for the driver from Mahomet, Illinois, and he will charge down the back straightaway.
Well, Chris Hune is trying to chase down the two guys in front of him. They are quite a distance ahead. We should see them coming off turn 14 here in just a moment. Here they come. Matter of fact, Raiden Nickel has already come off 16, and he's heading down to 1 right now. Adam Brickley is now working behind him. So Brickley is I would say a full straightaway behind, but it's hard to tell which straightaway we're speaking of here at Atlanta Motorsports Park.
On screen, we see our leader, Raiden Nichols, slice through turn 3 and now up through the carousel. He'll make that long sweeping left-hander. And then we see the driver from just down the road in Houston charge down towards turn 6.
Well, Raiden brings it in, and you watch him on camera. They are just doing a great job of bringing that car through turn number 6, accelerates down toward turn 7, and it'll disappear down the hill. Adam Brickley doing much the same, right in the tire tracks of Raiden Nickel, but you can tell that car just does not have the zip of the 93. He is not up to the same speed as Raiden Nickel is right now as we approach the halfway point of this race, very close to getting to halfway right now.
Now we're going to pick up Chris Hune as he dives into turn number 6. You get a feel for the gap between 2nd and 3rd. Last time around it was 22 seconds, the difference between Brickley back to Hune. And then it's Folger in 4th, William Layton 5th, David Mason in 6th, with Andrew Nagy running in 7th as Raiden Nichols slices by to see the cross flags here as we're almost at the 10-minute mark of our session.
Yep, halfway through, there's Brickley going by, and you can see Raiden Nickel heading up the hill by the condos. So Raiden Nickel now into turn number 4, just as Adam Brickley comes off turn number 1.
And we'll try to give you a mark for when Hune makes it by the start-finish line now as we see Nickel charging down into turn 6. He'll get hard on the brakes there once again in the shade. Hune just crossed the start-finish line, so Nickel was already in the apex of turn 6 as our third-place car.
Now, Chris Hune, he is closing the gap. He really is closing the gap on the leaders somewhat, but he's got such a long way to go to try to see if he can catch Adam Brickley.
Charles, he's got a long way to go and a short time to get there.
That's right. He's got 8 minutes or so to try to make up a lot of distance on this race course, and that is an impossible thing to happen right now unless something steps in to help him.
Charles, I just hit you with a movie line there, a movie reference. I don't know if you picked it up on that one. A long way to go and a short time to get there.
Absolutely.
Smokey and the Bandit, another Georgia film. So last of our cars comes by to see the crossed flags from our starter. as once again Ray Nichols sweeps by our vantage point to put another lap on the board.
Another interesting point from that movie, people may not realize it, but Jerry Reed is one of 3 people who are certified guitar pickers. That is something that Chet Atkins put into place. Chet Atkins, Jerry Reed, and from Australia, I'm trying to think of his name, Tommy somebody. They are the 3 people who were considered certified guitar pickers in the world of music.
Okay. Well, Smokey and the Bandit 1 filmed mostly here in Georgia as we follow Ray Nichols down the back straightaway.
And now most of it, did you know Georgia is the #1 movie-producing state in the nation now, exceeding California and New York?
I did not know that, but I know as you watch movies or TV shows, you get to see a lot of scenes where I was recently watching the 5th season of Cobra Kai, and which is supposed to be in California, Charles, and you'll see a scene in the backdrop. You see the foliage and the houses, and it's like, yeah, that's not California. That's filmed somewhere here in Atlanta, made to look like California.
Well, a friend of mine is the head of the union for the truck drivers that move all of the movie equipment back and forth from one place to the other. 60,000 truck drivers in the state of Georgia move equipment, and he's the head of that union. So that's where I'm learning some of this information from. Got drivers competing on the track right now. You see some good action going on right there coming off turn number 6 as we get a few more drivers now within sight of each other.
Looks like the best battle is William Layton and David Mason once again crossing swords for 5th place. They battled through most of the first session. It looks like they're going to resume their entente here in the final.
Entente.
I know, I reached for that word there,
I don't know to be impressed or whether I should look it up and see if it's really a word or not.
It's a real word. I think I misused it there to be actually with you. So once again, we see Ray Nichols
so the intent of the entente might not have been correct.
Well, if you think of World War I history, you had the entente, which was like one side of alliances. There we see the #1 car of Adam Brickley sweep by Andrew Nagy, putting him a lap down. Nichols had done that a little bit earlier. But yeah, the entente was, I think, the side that had Russia, France, Great Britain on it. And then you had the Central Powers on the other side.
John, you far exceed my military knowledge.
I probably misused the word, but hey.
There you see the 53 Chris Hune. He is still trying to see if he can gain some ground on those 2 guys ahead of him. Ray Nichols is out front, of course, and Adam Brickley is second. There comes Ray Nichols now across the line once again. We have completed 11 laps, which is rather immaterial because we have completed 13 minutes. That is the more important thing. Almost 14 minutes complete right now. So just a bit over 5 minutes to go, 6 minutes in this race, and Ray Nichols continues to lead this group right now. He is up in the carousel turn, so Nichols well ahead of his second-place competitor of Adam Brickley.
Nichols' best lap was 1 minute 20.709 seconds, and that's about a second quicker than the best lap of any other driver today. As there we see Nichols come off 6, charge down the back straightaway in that white with green trim Radical car.
And you see Ray Nichols' car has Primal written on the side of it. That is a Primal school here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. And, of course, if you want to learn more about these cars and learn how you can get in one of these cars, yes, you can buy one of these cars right here on site, and you can race it right here at the Primal Racing School.
School wasn't that much fun when we were kids, was it, Charles?
I'm afraid not.
They got some fun schools nowadays.
We had 2 racing books in our library at our elementary school. I read them both about a dozen times. You were there with A.J. Foyt as he won the Indianapolis 500 was one of them. The second was Tobacco Road, oddly enough. That were the only 2 racing books in our library.
Well, we're not here in Tobacco Road, but we are right near what you would call Thunder Road in Dawsonville, Georgia. Home of NASCAR champion Bill Elliott, home of NASCAR champion Chase Elliott, as well as the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame just outside the downtown area, as well as, Charles, this is going to sound shocking, but I have not yet eaten at the Dawsonville Pool Room. Every time I go by,
John.
I tried to go by this Labor Day, and they happen to be closed. So every time I seem to go by, somehow my timing does not mesh. I'm looking to get, what is it, the Bully Burger?
The Bully Burger.
Yeah.
Gordon Perkle, he is known, of course, at the Dawsonville Pool Room for the siren that blows every time a pole, or a victory for the Elliots. So he's had to put some new bearings in that thing over the last couple of years, I think. But Gordon runs a great facility there. Stop by and get a Bully Burger if you're in this area. You know, Chase Elliott used to sweep floors for Gordon at the pool room, and Gordon would tell me, he said, I would have to send the boy home. He said he would work all the time. I could not get him to go home. And so Chase, a good work ethic, and that is certainly showing up in his NASCAR career as well.
Best battle on the track we're focusing on now, William Layton in 5th, right behind him David Mason. So they're going to charge up through the carousel, and they're going to see who is the best of that matchup out front. There's no real contest at this point. Raiden Nickel is, as our second-place driver comes by the start-finish line now, Nickel 13.5 seconds in advance.
You know, Raiden is one of those drivers where every lap he is trying to improve himself. He's not interested in backing down because he is out there to learn. He's still racing the race course, and the youngster trying to get all the experience he can, and that means doing his best every lap. You mentioned his brake situation coming up a few races ago. Unless there's a mechanical issue where he has to back off because there's a problem, you're going to see Raiden Nickel going for it every lap to try to better himself.
Well, at that time, I think it was round 3, he flat out killed the brakes, that there was just nothing left in the system, and not really the rotors were worn out, but just all the brake fluid must have been just boiled straight out of the system because there was no resistance in the pedal at all.
Well, they're going to be coming around now. We are at 17.5 minutes complete, so couple minutes to go. We'll see. I believe we're going to maybe get the 2-to-go sign to Raiden Nickel here. I think we're poised to do that. We'll see if that's exactly what happens on the flag stand here in a moment. Brett Landry holding out. Yes, 2 flags to go, 2 laps to go for Raiden Nickel and the rest of our group of downforce cars as they head. Well, most of the cars are heading up in turn 4. Raiden Nickel is on his way there as the leader. He may yet lap a car or 2 more before we get on.
And just a little bit of action on track. Don't know from this vantage point who's passing, if that might be a lap car getting passed by Chris Hune as they were going through turn 11
That is,
and
I
12.
believe that's Nagy that's getting passed by Hune. I may be wrong on that, but from this vantage point, you can't tell. So I'm going to go with that, John.
I think you're right, just based on the spacing on the track. Raiden Nickel flashes by our vantage point down the back straightaway. We can see Adam Brickley. We haven't talked about Brickley much during this race, but he's just been solid in second place, steady laps. He sweeps off turn number 6, just in arrears to Raiden Nickel, but otherwise Brickley putting in a solid performance this afternoon.
And there you see that good battle going on that we're talking about. They're down in 14 in that lowest area of the racetrack now. They try to work their way uphill. It's quite an uphill as they get into 16. They got to go through that turn 15 area. Right there is the pit road comes off. Here they come off 16, and we'll see them on the front straightaway. There you see Raiden Nickel go by, and there you see that great battle going on, and that is the battle with the 78 of William Layton and David Mason in the 138.
Greg Folger is only right in front of them, so it seems like Layton and Mason are reeling Folger in. Now there's just 1 lap left. Nickel's already swept by, so Nickel will be knocking on the back door of these 3 as they're all battling for 4th, 5th, and 6th now as we get into the exciting conclusion here at AMP.
The Folgers are a father-son team. We only have one of them on track here today. Oh, look at this. We got a good battle going on down in 6. Folger now being reeled in. Check this out as the 78 of Layton tries to reel in Folger. We've got a lap underway. Our final lap is underway. Let's see what these drivers are going to do on this final lap.
These drivers haven't taken the white flag yet. So Nickel's already taken the white flag, and he's getting right up behind them. So heady times here on what might be the final lap. In your screen there, you see Folger, Layton, and Mason, and the 4th car in that quartet is our leader, Raiden Nickel. Let's see if he'll be able to slice past any of them. But for right now, Layton applying the pressure to Folger as they sweep through 14.
John, it's unbelievable. After all of these laps, and this time we've got 4 cars that close together on such a big road course.
Well, our flagman Brent Landry will have both flags in hand. The front 3 will get the white flag as they come by. And the winner this afternoon in our Radical class, Raiden Nickel, sweeps the afternoon, winning the pre-final and the final. Now the real competition is on as 4th, 5th, and 6th. They're going to charge past pole cam up to turn 2 and 3. Let's see if Layton or Mason have anything for Folger.
This is going to be an exciting lap. These three guys all have podium finishes, podium finish possibilities. One of them can get a podium finish. Let's see which one it's going to be.
They'd be 4th at best because Brickley is finished in 2nd, and in just a few moments we should see Chris Hune flash into our view.
Well, Hune's been able to get back up to 3rd. That's pretty impressive after his spin earlier.
But 4th, 5th, and 6th charges down the back straightaway. There we see Hune slice across the start-finish line to get the final spot on the podium.
If we were to have a second podium, these guys would be fighting for it. I'm redeeming myself, John.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to see Andrew Nagy come by. He was a lap down, but he will complete his race in 7th. So now the battle is on for who will be 4th, 5th, and 6th as they are out in the woods. Right now, they'll be probably
don't say in the woods.
I know,
that has a different connotation
there.
At this track.
How about through the forest section of the track?
I'm not sure that's
for
the forest section. That's better. Okay, we'll go with that.
Like at the Nuremberg Ring when they head out, and they leave the stadium part. There we go. So our 4th, 5th, and 6th. Folger was able to hold on for 4th, then Layton and Mason. So a great battle at the conclusion of our Radical race this afternoon.
We had a NASCAR race at some racetrack. I don't know if it was Mid-America or where it was many years ago, and a cornfield was right outside one of the turns. And I remember one of the drivers who got into the cornfield said he was picking corn out of his car for months after that. Every time he'd hit something, more kernels would appear from somewhere.
Sounds like a way that drivers would cheat to lose weight, though, having kernels come out of the car. Yeah, that was one of the tracks we had talked about on our lunch break when I said I went to Weedsport, was my first dirt track. At the time, there was a set of railroad tracks off Turn 3, and I believe right off Turn 2 was a cornfield. So it seemed like if you went up and over the hill, you'd be out there in the husks out there.
Interesting track, Hickory Motor Speedway, of course, one of the historic tracks. I was doing a race there one Sunday afternoon, and at Hickory there's a cemetery right across the street from the speedway. So we're right in the middle of the race, and we have to throw the red flag and wait on the graveside services to complete, and then after all the family leaves, fire back up and continue the race. Interesting afternoon.
That's an interesting facet, that there's a zoning law that you have to stop while there's a service going on.
Well, you wouldn't want to continue doing that anyway. So I'm not sure it was a zoning law. I think it was a respect for the family at that point. It's been a great afternoon here at Atlanta Motorsports Park. We've got podium finishes or podium presentations coming up. So hang on. We'll be back with those in just a moment.